Welcome to Ibis Weather. This is Sarah with date for Wednesday, August 13th, 2025, and we are doing our evening update. So we don't have too terribly a lot to go through today. Kind of going along the same as what we've been seeing for the past few days. Erin is still out there spinning and making her way. There's been a little difference in her structure and changes to what they think is going to happen, which we'll go over in a little bit. And I also want to mention that we also no longer have an area of interest over there by Nova Scotia, and we do have an area of interest, which I mentioned earlier today, over there by the Yucatan that will cross over and into the extreme southwest Gulf Coast over there by Mexico. To go on that a little bit, we talk a little bit. You right now have about 10% for both 48 hours and 7-day development. Uh, doesn't seem like they're thinking a whole lot's going to be done. They're not too worried right now about anything extreme rainfall or anything along those lines, which is good. Since it looks like it probably will start moving inland pretty soon once it gets into the Gulf again. Doesn't have a whole lot of time to go ahead and start trying to redevelop or get into anything more powerful. It is in the Gulf, which I know freaks out a lot of people associated with extremely powerful hurricanes, which is true as we've seen in the past seasons and mini storms. But right now, the sea surface temperatures for that, which we'll also get into a little bit, is not super warm in that area. It's okay and good enough for a tropical system to try to form, but it's nothing super powerful or good. Plus, other conditions would have to take place as well. Of course, let's go to the topic that everyone wants to know about, which is still Tropical Storm Erin. She is still out and about going along. Before we do that, I do want to show you kind of the satellite presentation of this waves over which I do have over here. So as you can see, it's over here right now, a little bit northwest of Belize. As you can see, it's still moving. There's also a cluster of storms over there just in the more middle part of the Gulf, but this cluster is expected to move over this area and into that, and they'll eventually make its way inland into Mexico and possibly extreme South Texas. But again, nothing super concerning at the moment. Of course, things can change, but right now it seems like it should probably just be a breezy, wet day for most people who encounter not tropical system. Then go back to the topic of Erin. As you can see, she is still over there. Currently, she has slowed down to moving west at 17 miles per hour. So previously, if you remember, she was about 22, 23 miles per hour going. She has slowed down some. Her wind speed has gone up to from 45 to now 50. So she has gained 5 miles per hour. Her pressure is still over 1,000. And you can see she's located 16.3 north and 45.0 west as she's making her way toward the west. As I mentioned, there's not a whole lot of change with her right now. It's um kind of the same as what it's been doing. I'm sure everybody's going to want to know about what on earth with. I think I have two of those open when I wasn't trying to. Let's go. Yes, to this. Everyone is always wanting to know about the cone. Again, I do want to remind everyone the cone is not to let you know where you're going to get impacts. Impacts can be felt far and wide beyond the sensor. This is just where they think that the sensor could possibly track. If you remember yesterday, she was touching a little bit on the northern Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. Well, that has changed. Looks like they're expecting her to be well north of that, at least the eye, but of course, that's not counting in any wind field size or rain shield or bands. Those a lot of times go quite far out beyond the eye. So it's still too early to know what and when you guys will feel. I mean, you can pretty much sure you can count on you guys are going to have waves. Um, Rip currents obviously are going to be a concern, including for those in the Bahamas, Bermuda, and the southeast coast as she gets closer to us next week. But right now, in the meantime, we don't really have anything set in stone, so we can't really say. No watches or warnings have been issued as of yet because she is still far out. Looks like she'll be approaching closest to the Leeward Islands Saturday, making her way up northwest and be east of the Bahamas on Monday afternoon. Does show she'll still become a major hurricane, so that'll be anything of Cat 3 or above, so Cat 3, 4, or 5. Those have very destructive winds, so we do want to keep an eye on that. And of course, we still want to keep an eye on the East Coast here too, in Bermuda and the Bahamas, as we still don't have anything set in stone about where her track will be. Since we are talking about the islands, I did want to show this to everyone. Again, this is about earliest reasonable arrival time for tropical storm force winds. So again, the winds are only going to expand so many miles outside of the center. Um, and with a hurricane, it's kind of like the target sign if you think about it. You'll have one band of hurricane and then uh, or well, that'll be closest to the eye, and then beyond that, the bigger band of it will be tropical storm force. Now, I have seen some people say that some meteorologists have hinted at that she will grow physically, as we mentioned yesterday, meaning right now she is a pretty small storm is still. Again, don't underestimate the power of what a small storm can do. Just look at, for instance, Hurricane Andrew from 1992. Sure, South Florida would be very familiar with that. And remember, how damaging that hurricane was with how physically small it was. But they do expect her to grow, Erin, and so with growing, that means her wind field will double and grow as well. So this is all very possible. We could still be dealing with tropical storm force winds, um, and possibly hurricane again, depending how close she tracks and how big everything becomes as she gets closer. So from Friday morning through Friday evening, the Leeward Islands, a decent sized chunk of them will be dealing with possible tropical storm force winds. Puerto Rico would start Saturday morning through Saturday night, and then Hispaniola would be dealing with from Saturday night into Sunday night, with the Eastern Bahamas experiencing possibly Sunday morning to Sunday night. As early as a reasonable time. So again, just because you're shown here does not mean for a fact that you will indeed get tropical storm force winds. It's talking about this is what they see is the most reasonable possibility of when you can expect possibly. Sometimes they don't start until hours later, depending on how fast she's moving, again, how big she is. Again, these are not official, these are just what they are estimating currently with the current conditions and how she is tracking right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at what she looks like. So this is satellite image of her. As you can see, she has definitely improved a little bit. She, as I mentioned earlier today, has definitely gotten what they call the classic shrimp look, meaning she is actually starting to have more convection and come together a little bit more typical for a tropical cyclone. She's trying to stack. There is some issues with some shearing that she's dealing with from wind. Again, she is surrounded by Saharan dust and dry air, which is not a friend to her, which is a good thing. That's why it's probably slowing her down, making it a little bit harder for her to actually become a hurricane at the moment. But as I see, she is already improving. Again, her speed has actually, or not her speed, her mm, wind speed is what I was trying to say. Wind speed is what actually has increased. Again, only by 5 miles per hour, but that's still something, especially when it's sustained winds, which is what we're talking about. So she is definitely still chugging along and improving. We think that she might try to create, as I mentioned yesterday, another lever, a layer of circulation in a different area from where her sensor is, and then she can try to restack into more favorable conditions. She's still in kind of lukewarm, well, we wouldn't consider it lukewarm, but for a hurricane, we would consider lukewarm temperatures. So it does promote for them to form, but it's not ideal. She will move more into the ideal as we go forward. But as you can see, she's already making some improvements, and we can expect she'll probably stay the same for the next 24, 48 hours. But once she gets past that and she enters more favorable conditions and waters, that's when we can expect her to possibly start doing intensification and even rapidly. Even though there is a cap where it seems like they seem to think that Cat 3 might be the cap here. Again, this can all change. Tomorrow they are flying out the Hurricane Hunters, so probably by Friday, that's when the models will have the input the data and run with it, then we'll get a better idea of what we're talking about. Right now, this is what we're working with and is what is being expected. Again, you can see a lot of moisture to her east of her as well, but you can definitely see the convection starting to fire up, and she is actually growing. As you can see, those thunderstorms are getting wider and larger. And here is another image of her satellite. So this one is not as pretty as the rainbow one. Again, this one is really good at showing how small of a storm she still is when you really think about it. You can kind of see in the middle, definitely where she is getting the convection firing up. You can definitely see her outflow and inflow, which is pretty interesting and neat. And you can see, like I said, she is working on getting herself better and stacked and ready to go forward with intensification in the future. But it is always fun to see what this looks like, and you can see she's still very small. Some people will probably say she looks a little bit like a comma, an upside down comma to those of us looking at this, but definitely interesting nonetheless, or an apostrophe be a little more applicable here, but it is still fun to see, as you can see. So we'll see by this time tomorrow what this will look like. I anticipate probably she'll probably look a little bit better and possibly bigger and stronger as we would expect her to going forward. Again, no rapid intensification to happen until like 48 hours down the line. But we'll wait and see. Sometimes these storms do start doing things faster than what's anticipated, even in less than ideal conditions. So we'll have to see what Erin brings for us. Okay, next I want to talk about water temperatures. So right now, we can't really see where she is, but she should be probably around 79 or 80-degree waters, which is again more than enough to get something going and kind of feeling it, but it's not the gasoline to a hurricane the way they want it. So again, as we mentioned earlier, we're talking about the storms over there by the Yucatan. So as you can see over there, they have very warm waters right now, 85 degrees, 84, 85 over here between Yucatan and Cuba, and then 86 over there by coast of Mexico and the southern coast of Texas. 84 is closer more to where the curvature of Mexico to the Yucatan is. um, so it's a little bit cooler, so this will track over that. But once it gets into the 86 degree, granted, it'll be very close to land, so probably won't have much chance to really get back together and actually form into something significant. But the waters are there for potential, and it could still end up having some significant thunderstorms, and tropical rains, possibly serious tropical rains. But again, right now they're not thinking it's going to be anything super dangerous, as we saw earlier this year with Central Texas, unfortunately. But as I'm going to mention about Erin, as she continues to track westward, you can see she will be entering more prime waters. So over there by Hispaniola and the Leeward Islands and the Antilles, she will definitely be more toward the middle 80s. And then as she gets closer to the southeast coast and the Bahamas, the temperatures definitely go up. As you can see over there, right by Jacksonville and Brunswick, they have 85-degree. Granted, that's 1 degree cooler than what's over there by the Big Bend of Florida with 86, or even there by Houston and Galveston Bay, 86 degrees, or even New Orleans at this point, but still, that is more than plenty enough water to fuel it. So we do anticipate, she will juice up and get as big and strong as she can possibly get with the conditions. They are saying, as per the NOAA's discussion of the storm, that they do expect a anticyclonic high pressure to develop over here by Hispaniola as she gets closer to it. So that will kind of put a cap on her strengthening, which is a good news. And they are thinking that we will also kind of have a high pressure coming in off the southeast coast, as well as what will be known as the Bermuda or Azores high pressure. So it will create, again, as I mentioned earlier, a hatch plan or hatch escape plan for Erin to kind of skyrocket up north. Granted, timing is everything. We just don't have enough about that. And again, things can change. We don't really have a grasp of what these high pressures are going to do and how close together they're going to get. Because the stronger that the high pressures are, the more west she's going to go. So in the case of the Bermuda high, the further west it tracks, the more west she's going to end up having to go because she can't turn north. So it's kind of like if you remember when Hurricane Irma, what was all about the talk about that and how the high pressures and the timing is kind of similar with that, or even Hurricane Matthew, if you will. Of course, we're not saying that Aaron's going to be anything like either of those hurricanes. Each hurricane is different in its own right, so we shouldn't be basing this stuff off past ones. But in terms of the high pressure, and locations of that and the timing is where we're talking about. Again, we should hopefully have a better idea by the time this weekend comes around. Now, granted, sometimes they don't get it completely right, as we saw with Hurricane Helene last year. Uh, she didn't get picked up by the front as they expected, so it's possible that we may not, the front coming across the US might not come as far south as they thought. Um, the Bermuda High might not come as far as west either. We just don't know yet. So again, anyone, here in the southeast or even, a little bit over there as far as maybe south tip of South Florida and Cuba should be definitely watching this and seeing where this goes. Most likely, like I said, it will turn. So I'm not too worried about the likes of Florida and then the Gulf. But from Georgia up to the Carolinas, some of the models do show her again brushing up or even possibly making some landfall over North Carolina, which we'll get to right now to show you what that will look like. So this is the Euros one. So as you can see, we do have at least two showing her making landfall over North Carolina and or the Outer Banks. Most of them still have her well off the coast. It looks like two also have going up there by Nova Scotia. Um, so again, if you are seeing any of these symbols or spaghetti noodles going through, it's not time to freak out right now. We still have time to watch. They kind of go back and forth. Yesterday they weren't touching, the day before they were. So we'll continue to see that wishy-washy motion between all of these runs. Like I said, we should get a better idea though by this weekend on more of an idea of where she'll go, and hopefully we'll start seeing the models kind of come more in agreement. So far, the models are still in agreement that she will indeed mostly likely stay offshore, which is always a good thing for those of us, but again, things can change between now and then. And here is for the GFS. This one does not have her making a landfall anywhere on the southeast coast. It does impact Bahamas, and we do have a couple going over Nova Scotia as well. But again, most of them are showing her staying out to sea and curving around. Of course, both things do show Bermuda possibly getting impacts as well. Again, it's too early to tell. But as you can see with both sets of these noodles, how wide they're spread out, so the consensus is just not quite there yet. You can definitely see where the consensus is more in line down here, where like her current location is. We do see, one kind of taking her further south and west with the GFS model, which is the American, and we do see a couple also with the Euro also doing that. So we just have to continue to wait and see and monitor, and we should get a better grip come this weekend. Uh, and then I also was going to show something else here. Correct surface. Yes, so this is what I wanted to show. Again, talking kind of about the physical size of a hurricane, as I mentioned, you have the eye, which is the calm part of the storm, and then you have your windshield. Since she is only a tropical storm, you will see that she only has orange, which it means she has sustained tropical storm force winds. But you can see quite how small she is right now. Um, her winds don't expand very far out, which is a good thing, but this is expected to change and grow as we go forward as well. So that is worth noting as we look at the islands and the Bahamas and Bermuda and the Caribbean, and then of course the Southeast US. And then again, I wanted to kind of show where she is in relation to the Saharan dust. So again, the Saharan dust is the yellow, orange, and red. So you do see, it's interesting, you kind of see how yesterday she was kind of fizzling out right there, and you can see where she started to form again and get a little bit better as she continues to trek west. So you can definitely see she is starting to enter more favorable conditions and water. She is still surrounded, still a little bit raggedy looking at the moment, but we expect that to change at least in 48 hours, if not earlier. And then it does show, it looks like we have some waves coming off as well. They'll be following her. So we will have to keep track of those as we enter the peak of hurricane season. So I guess my key messages here for everyone is right now, continue to follow people that you trust. I am here for you guys if you to continue to follow my updates. Make sure you pay attention to anything from NOAA or your weather service, or if you're in another country. Um, Right now we don't have any official threats, so now is the time to get familiar with the difference between a hurricane warning, tropical storm warning, hurricane watch, tropical storm watch, knowing if you are in an evacuation zone and what zone are you in, what evacuation plan does your town or county have, shelters that they could open up, and if so, what would those shelters be? Typically, this stuff would be published on any of their emergency management websites. So you can always Google your county or town and then just put EMA or emergency management. You should pull up their website. And if they don't have it on their website, they probably have a phone number that you can call and get more information. Let's at least here for the US, I would assume the islands would have something very similar as well for their citizens. So it would be a good time to check out. Also, go ahead and check your hurricane preps. Make sure that you guys have everything you need. Start maybe restocking on some of the stuff that you trying to find. Here we go. That you might need. So like make sure you have plenty of batteries for flashlights. Do you have a can opener that works that's not electric? Do you have a way to cook your food, whether that is a gas grill, charcoal grill? Do you use gas stove? Make sure you have enough gas for that. Check your generator if you have one. Maybe look into if you don't have it connected, find out the proper way to connect it. I would recommend an electrician for that, for your safety. Um, find out, you know, backup plans for who you need to contact, or if you're going to have to evacuate, who are you going to keep in contact. A lot of times cell phone networks do go down in a case of a hurricane, so like I said, right now is the time to just make your preps, check things. You don't have to actually start packing things and sorting things, but once you have a list and kind of idea of what you know, in case you do, as we approach the weekend and we do start seeing a little bit more trends and consensus of places being impacted by and what impacts that could be, it would be best to have those scenes prepared so that way that's one less thing to worry about. You can just go off your checklist and make sure everything is good. And then again, we are reaching peak season, so even if you don't get impacted by Aaron, we have plenty of other chances to happen for the rest of the season. We don't end until the end of November. In the last year, we did see, a more active fall with hurricanes than we previously have in the past few years. So it's worth noting that, right now is a good time to get acquainted and know what you need to know ahead of time. Make sure you follow your trusted weather sources, and of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment and I will do my best to answer. And we'll continue to track. I'll be making more posts tomorrow morning and another video update tomorrow night. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will talk to you guys later.